Bin Laden's letter to America going viral over 20 years since it initially was circulating and published. This is quite a situation that is unfolding here. First, let's go to this. TikTok has become the social media website of choice for Gen Z in America. I think that's clear at this point. And if you look at TikTok, there's a lot of pro-Hamas stuff all over the place, and particularly sympathy for the Palestinian cause, Hamas, all the rest of it. But what you're now seeing are people who have started to look for rationalizations of what Hamas has done, and this is now going viral. The Bin Laden letter, he wrote it a year after the September 11th attacks. And it was circulating among jihadists online and including in the UK, where I believe the Guardian published it. And now the Guardian has pulled it down as I'm speaking to you. And they're saying they're redirecting people from the letter to a news story. I'm going to tell you what's really going on with that in a second. But just to give you a sense of it, these are young people, okay? And they seem to be overwhelmingly American. I mean, maybe some of them are abroad somewhere. But these are young people, early 20s, mid-20s, who, with all that's going on, and with these big protests and the little riot outside the DNC last night by Hamas sympathizers, with all that's happening, they're like, Bin Laden? Yeah, he kind of had a point, they're saying in this. Listen to some of this. Play 9.
I read Osama bin Laden's letter to America.
In the last 20 minutes, my entire viewpoint on the entire life I have believed and I have lived has changed.
9/11 and those acts committed against the USA and its people were all just the buildup of our government failing other nations.
Now, let me tell you, I joined the CIA because of the 9/11 attacks and Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Okay, so it was something that had a major shift in the not just trajectory of my life, but of course of America and of the world. But for me, this does bring back very specific memories and does feel quite personal. Bin Laden was an Islamic supremacist and a psychopath, okay? Part of what they're not talking about in this letter, because they're saying, Bin Laden, and you'll hear this from people, he just was opposed to U.S. bases in the Middle East and the treatment of the Palestinians, and, cites a few other things. Oh, no, but he also cites homosexuality, he cites the decadence of the West, he cites a whole bunch of things that they won't talk about as reasons for why we need to be attacked and destroyed. But if you really want to get a sense as to why is Bin Ladenism, which is just another version, he's just one leader within the militant Islamic framework, right? I mean, he's just, you look at, who was Ayman al-Zawahiri? Ayman al-Zawahiri, his number 2, was a Muslim Brotherhood leader. Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, lots of connections there. You start to see all these different entities and organizations. They're Islamic supremacist entities, meaning that there are only 2 kinds of society. There is the land of Islam, the Dar al-Islam, and the land of war, the Dar al-Harb, meaning you can do whatever you want to do because they're the bad guys. They're the infidels. So this people, I think, have forgotten, and this younger generation, I mean, a lot of you listening to this are veterans, and you saw the evil in Iraq and Afghanistan of the Islamic supremacists. You saw what militant Islam, jihadism, it's a viciousness with no end. It's a death cult, like Hamas. You see, this all actually ties together, and this is why. Hamas is a resistance organization, right? And it's different than Al Qaeda. It's really not. It's not. And that's why all of a sudden the people who like Hamas are saying maybe Bin Laden had a point. Under Bin Laden's framework, first of all, if you read the whole letter, and if you read jihadist writing in general, they absolutely hate Jews. They the most vile and severe and extreme anti-Semitism imaginable. I mean, anti-Semitism sounds like too gentle of a term. Islamic supremacists hate Jews. All of them. All of them. They have been trained to do so. They think it is central to their theology. And they will cite hadith. They will cite their own version of scripture in support of this. And that is true across the board. It's true of ISIS. It's true of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. It's true of Boko Haram. It's true of Hamas. It's true of Hezbollah. Name me a group. Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Find me a terrorist organization that is jihadist, and I will show you people who hate the Jews, even if they're on the other side of the world. Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Go over to the Philippines. Go over to some of the jihadist entities that are a little more off the radar. They hate Jews too. Why is that? Oh, because of Palestine, you see. Because of Palestine. They're all trained to care so much about this very small piece of land. There's a lot of other things that they could be focused on, but no, they're all told, whether it's terrorists in Indonesia, very, very upset about what's going on in Palestine. They're all told this. They all believe this. But if you look at what bin Laden's belief system actually is, for the people saying, oh, he just doesn't want military bases of the U.S. in the land of the two holy cities. Idiocy. There's idiocy all over the place. He justifies the attack on anyone in any Western society at any level, any age, any involvement. Meaning, you're upset about what's going on with the Palestinians? Nuke a city if you can. You get your hands on a nuclear weapon, destroy New York, destroy London, kill everybody. Justified. And you say, well, hold on a second. How could that be just? I mean, that's oppression of the Palestinians. So much historical oppression of the Palestinians. There is no outer limit to this because it is a death cult. And once you start to understand that mentality, once you start to see what they really believe, you recognize, you go, oh my God, how do we deal with these people? Well, the way the IDF is dealing with them now, which is hunt them down and kill them or put them in incarceration for life. That's it. People who are true believers in Hamas, those are your options, or else they're going to come and kill you again because it is central to their identity. I mean, sure, you could talk about de-radicalization. Trust me, I was familiar with some of the de-radicalization programs that various governments have. They are overwhelmingly failures, but you can try that, but it's generally not going to work. And in the meantime, you risk another attack like what we've just seen. But think about this. You have young people today. This is going viral. It's all over the place. You have young people today who are finding what they think is truth and expressing solidarity with Osama bin Laden. And it all lines up because what have I been saying on this show for weeks? Now you have seen Hamas has shown beyond a doubt that it is morally on the same plane, that it is equivalent to Al-Qaeda, ISIS, go down the list. It's no different. It's no different. It is soaked in hatred of the Jews, soaked in hatred of the West. In fact, built on a foundation of those hatreds. And ultimately is one of the most toxic mentalities that exists in any society at any time in history, which is a constant loop of victimization that can be used to justify anything. And you see this, what you have is the Palestinians are held up by the Islamic world as the ultimate victims, more victimized than any other people in history, more victimized than the Jews, which would seem completely insane to anybody who has even the faintest knowledge of 20th century history and the Second World War. But, oh, that's right. Hamas denies all that. That's also a part of the jihadist ideology. As we're sitting here saying, oh, bin Laden had a point. Yeah, of course they deny the Holocaust. Of course they deny the oppression against the Jewish people because the Palestinians have to be the ultimate victims. And therefore, any insufficiency in any Muslim society anywhere in the world, or that any individual Muslim may feel, or any leftist here in America, some blue-haired white kid who feels like, oh, I'm not, I don't have a cause. I'm going to be the one who links up arms with the Palestinian cause because they're the ultimate victims. And instead of looking inward and thinking, what am I doing in my life? What am I doing in my society? Or what is my society really about that is a failure? It's, oh, I just care about this. I care so much about this issue. 500,000 people died in the Syrian civil war. The Muslim world was like, yeah, let them fight it out. 100,000 children have died in the Yemeni war, civil war with the Houthis. As long as it's Muslims killing other Muslims, the Islamic world feels very differently about this, as in it's generally indifferent. Generally indifferent. But if Jews want to live in peace in Israel, no, somehow that's always a negotiation that has to happen. Why is that a negotiation? I think, fortunately, the voices of sanity here in the West recognize that there can be no negotiation with these barbarians. I've seen what their negotiations end up with and look like. Many of you who have served overseas know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a death cult, and they will destroy as many lives as they possibly can in the pursuit of a goal that they will never attain because they have been brainwashed into thinking that even as they are taking life from innocents, they are the victims. Even if nothing has happened to them, oh my gosh, don't you realize what happened to the Muslim people who, lived here 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago? It's never ending. It never ends. And that's why these people who are saying bin Laden had some good ideas. Well, he has some good ideas if you want to just completely surrender Western civilization, basic human freedom and dignity. If you want the end of the entire liberal canon, and I mean liberal as in small L, as in people having liberty and people having dignity, you better just submit right now. You better bend the knee. Then bin Laden would be fine with you. And you better, of course, convert or pay the jizya, which is the special tax for the second-class citizens who are effectively treated like cows to be milked. But that's a whole other part of Islamic history that you won't really learn about in school. I wonder why that is. Dimitude, the second-class citizen status where if you don't actually pay the special tax, which could be crippling depending on the society we're talking about, you could be killed. That's the version of living peaceably in these societies historically. But again, I can't go over all the history today. But I just wanted to give you some sense as to why it is completely insane and deeply immoral, but shows you really what we're dealing with here. Who is on the left and what do they believe? They like Hamas, and they're kind of open to the whole Al-Qaeda thing too. Some interesting ideas. That's what they are saying, and make note of it.